With an average crowd of over 30,000 and a record attendance of 75,000, you could say that thanks to this World Cup, women's football has finally arrived at the scene. With unprecedented records being made and the entire world on the edge of its seats for women's football, the big question, are men and women's football now really equal? Keep watching this video to find out, as we'll be answering that shortly. Some say yes, others say no, and there's quite a lot of questions jumping around, which is why Sportelligence is there once again to guide you home. So let's run over a few important factors that will determine the success of women's football, such as their fight for equality along its many obstacles. We'll look at where we stand now, and if it really can compete with men's football, and what's next. Let's begin with the bigger picture in inequality. Ask yourself, who are your role models in football? Ronaldo, Messi, Zlatan? Personally, I adored Wayne Rooney. I used to worship the guy. And now, our first big question. How many female role models do young girls have? You could say a lot more right now than there was 2, 5, 10 years ago. But there should be so many more. Many national federations have failed to provide adequate support, facilities, and investment to adequately prepare teams. Coaching methods and management of some women's teams have been heavily criticised. Alongside this, you've got the cancellation of training camps and non-payment of players' appearance fees. Non-payment of salaries is almost unheard of, and in 2023, that's like being in the Stone Age or something. However, it is more prominent in the women's game, and that's what you and us at Sportelligence are now battling. Inequality, injustice, discrimination. These are just some of the words just floating around women's football. But with recent improvements on and off the field, there is absolutely hope. First of all, there's a lot more female referees getting involved in the game. If you've been to football games in England particularly, you'll have seen plenty officiating in the men's game. But something we wouldn't have anticipated just a decade ago was the first ever woman to coach a professional men's team. These are both brilliant signs that the game's changing in the right direction. Hannah Dingley started coaching EFL League 2 club Forest Green Rovers this summer, and yes, although that appointment only lasted 2 weeks and she never took charge of a first team competitive fixture, it was still a pivotal moment. And things don't end there with Hannah Dingley. We now have Norway with their first female coach, Renate Blindheim, managing in men's football. So who and which country is next? Even though there has been and still is this lack of women coaching in a male-dominated sport, there is a clear trend toward a more balanced model. And who knows, maybe we could do a video entirely on women's coaching in men's football. Let us know in the comments if that's something you want to see. Next up, broadcasting deals. Now, whilst record deals are being signed for the Men's World Cup, it's a very different story for the women's. The media broadcasting rights for 5 European nations regarding the World Cup, including England, were only agreed upon less than 6 weeks before the tournament began. That shows a complete lack of interest and preparation from businesses. This fiasco arose from a blunder by FIFA, whose decision to decouple the men's and women's tournament broadcast rights was hyped to show the women's game had, in inverted brackets, made it. But that decision proved premature, and the low broadcast bids, which FIFA considered unacceptable, suggest the male-dominated broadcast media remain unconvinced women's football has much value in its own right. This delay meant that not only a lot of valuable advertising revenue was lost, but also one more very important thing: time. Not only has there been issues with broadcasting, but the marketing of the tournament has been underwhelming and over-reliant on conventional inspiration themes aimed at young girls. Strategies that have little proven impact on participation and are often seen as quite simply patronising. You see, women's football is still being run mainly on conventional ideas, and while there's always been new suggestions to help improve the men's game, the European Super League for example, none of these efforts are seemingly being made in the women's game, let alone new leagues. Most of the bigger clubs like Real Madrid and Manchester United have only in the last few years introduced a women's team. So at the very top, there is still a long way to go. But let's look at the response this World Cup is getting by the fans. It is truly one of the best we've ever seen. People have been absolutely fascinated by the recent Women's World Cup. The international governing body said that almost 1.8 million tickets were sold for the tournament, co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand, with a total of 1.7 million in attendance for the first 60 games. That is a sensational turnaround for a sport that has struggled so much over the past few years. Several of the games had an attendance of over 75,000. To put that in perspective, the UK's second largest stadium, Old Trafford, has a capacity of 74,300. Now, with attendance like that in Australia and New Zealand, you can only wonder what the numbers will be like the next time the World Cup comes to Europe. FIFA said that the average crowd across the 10 venues has been 28,900, more than 7,000 above the average for games at the 2019 edition in France, and more than 4,000 above the historical average at 8 previous Women's World Cups. On top of that, at club level, things are changing. Stadium attendances for 2022 was already exceeding pre-COVID levels. The English Women's Super League registered a whopping 729% attendance growth between 2017 and 2022. And if that's not enough, the last 3 Women's World Cups have seen their highest attended women's games reach above 70% of the attendance at the highest attended men's games. So yes, times are changing, and even new technology being introduced such as ultra-comfort sports bras that can help women reach their full potential, all add into this mix. So with all we've discussed, including other reforms in the pipeline such as potentially equal wages, the trend is absolutely changing. Times are not far away when we can enjoy the beautiful game regardless of gender. We at Sportelligence can't wait for that to happen, and we're sure you feel the same. We promise to keep you updated as things move forward. Now before we go, don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date with all the videos being added to our channel. And whilst you're here, why not check out some of those now? We'll see you soon.